It is designed to help you get any questions you have answered and to review everything that we need to go over with you in order to ensure that we're opening the school safely and securely and that we keep everybody safe when they're here and everybody knows what's happening. So I'll begin in earnest in just a few minutes. I know we're expecting a few more people, and the church bells for 3 o'clock haven't chimed just yet, but they will shortly. This is a webinar, so we will be accepting questions through the Q&A button that should be on your Zoom app toolbar that is either at the bottom or the top of your screen, and the button says Q&A. And you click on that and you write your question and it will be put in the queue and we'll be able to read it and respond to it during the presentation. The way we've done it for the first two webinars, and it's worked very well, participants would post their question, and if it pertains to something that we're immediately talking about and it maybe seeks a clarification or to expound upon something, we answer it. A lot of times you'll think of a question, you'll put it in, but it's coming up later in the presentation. But if you put a question into that Q&A button, then it's going to be answered today. It's going to be addressed. In addition, we have a list of questions that many people submitted earlier this week through the form, and that was extremely helpful in guiding what we wanted to do during the webinar. Because this can be a ponderous task, to say the least, and it could be a heavy lift for all of us. But if we ask the questions that we need answered, it moves our reopening plan further along. And that is exactly what these meetings are supposed to do. These are supposed to move our reopening plan further along, because your questions, your response, the things you need clarification about, that is nothing but help to us, because we need to know what you don't know and what you have to know before we can start school properly. And that's what these meetings have been doing. And they've been very, very good. And I've spoken to a number of administrators, both in public school and private school, who have done these. And we're about in the middle of the pack. About half the schools have gone through them already, and then others are waiting and finishing up next week. But we've all agreed that these presentations, whether they're meetings or webinars, they've really done a lot for us as administrators. So I'm going to thank you in advance for participating in this webinar, listening to me for the next hour plus. And hopefully at the end, you will feel as confident and comfortable with our reopening plan as we do. We know that there are a lot of things that have to take place between now and September, and we haven't been given that much time to do it. But with everyone's help, with everyone's cooperation and contribution, we're going to get this thing right where it needs to be, where everybody can be comfortable, and there's not going to be a safer school out there. There could be plenty of schools which are just as safe, but I am looking at my plan and I'm hearing what other places are doing, and I think we've struck a very important balance between safety and health and learning. And that's something we do have to remember. We're a school, and learning takes place here, and our children grow here, and we need to keep them healthy and safe. And we've put some great things in place in the reopening plan that will do just that. So we, as you know, we closed down on March the 13th, and what was supposed to be at the time, maybe 3 days, maybe 5 days, we would be back in it. Well, we weren't. And it's been 6 months now since, or it will be 6 months before our children come back to school. And that's a long time to be away from school. The fact is, when they come back to school, it's going to be a lot different. It's going to look the same from the outside, But inside, it's going to be a lot different. And it's important that we go over with you as parents how it's going to be different. And we can answer any questions that you might have. We will be returning to school 5 days a week. And the way it's going to work is starting on Thursday, September the 10th, half of our students will come in. And on Friday, September the 11th, the other half of students will come in. And each day is going to be half a day. It's going to run from about 8:30 to 11. Children can arrive as early as 7:30, between 7:30 and 8:15. This year, anything past 8:15, 8:20, we're going to consider late. We'll be starting the academic portion of our day a little bit later this year. We're going to be starting about 8:30. We have to let all of the time for students to come in and to do the things that they have to do. So we're going to adjust a little bit because we know getting the kids to school is going to be a little bit different. So we've changed our time inside here. The bell's still going to ring at 8:10, but we know that families are going to have to come in a little bit later. And there's a lot of reasons for that we'll get into. But on September the 10th and September 11th, you'll be assigned one of those 2 days as a family, and you're going to bring your child in, and you're going to follow the protocols that we're going to go over. And then you'll pick your child up a little bit later in the day, and you're going to follow the protocols that we need to in order to safely get your child home. And we've gone through this, and this is our third time that we've gone through this, and hopefully any questions that you have will be answered. But if they're not, please keep in mind that you can certainly email us, and we ask that you do so that you do know what is happening. We don't want any questions hanging out there. So as I said, we're opening in person 5 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And that's for pre-K all the way through 8th grade. We do not have to offer a hybrid. We do not have to have some kids come in some days and some kids on the others and alternate like some schools are doing. We don't have to do that. And the reason we don't have to do that is we were fortunate enough that we were able to convert our gymnasium and our cafeteria into learning space. And that freed up a number of classrooms in the academic hallway. And in the academic hallway, we could break our pre-K through 4th grade classes in half. So you're going to learn today that by design, our class learning areas are going to be much smaller in terms of population. We've capped class sizes at 20, and a number of our classes are full now with waiting lists forming. So as part of our reopening plan, there are going to be some basics that we're going to follow all the time. And one of the things as families and students you need to know, a 6-foot social distance protocol will be followed in the classrooms. We really don't want the children sitting next to each other if they're not 6 feet apart at their desks. Now, what that allows us to do is when the children are in their classrooms and they are sitting at their desks, because they will be more than 6 foot away from each other, they can take their masks off when they're sitting at their desk. And that is a big thing. Also, if they go within the 6 feet, the mask goes on. So there will be a lot of times during the day where the teacher has set up the room and has set up the lesson, and the children will be at their desks and they'll be working, and they can take their mask off. They'll keep it right next to them in a very handy spot, because the teacher may at any point say, okay, I've got to come around the room and check on how you're doing. Please put your masks on. And the teacher will be masked, and the teacher will walk around the room, and the children will be masked, and work will continue. The social distancing protocols don't say that we have to stay 6 feet away from each other, and that just wouldn't make sense in an elementary school or a middle school or a preschool. But what it does say is if we are within 6 feet of each other, we really have to wear masks. That's a non-negotiable. But masks won't be required if you're socially distanced in the classroom. If you're not in the classroom, you're wearing a mask, whether you're within 6 feet of someone else or not. But in the classroom, if you're 6 feet away from each other person and you're sitting at your desk, you're not moving, you can remove the mask. So masks won't be required during instruction or when the children are eating or during scheduled breaks, as long as that 6-foot distance is maintained. Another reopening basic that we're going to have to get used to is every time students come to school at the beginning of the year, we're going to take their temperature. And families will be responsible for self-wellness reporting. And that will be done electronically. I don't have any more information on the app that we'll be using. It's going to be purchased through Educational Vista, who we've worked on for other projects over the years. And we've looked into it as a diocese, and every school in the diocese is going to use this app. Another thing to keep in mind with our plan, students are not going to commingle. I'm not going to have kindergartners and first graders together. I'm not going to have second and third graders together. I'm not going to have fifth and sixth graders together. The student's cohort is their grade. Now in pre-K through 4, those cohorts will be broken into 2 sections at any given time. And those sections are not going to be the same. They're not going to be the same during the day, and they're going to be mixed up quite a bit. So every student is going to see every other child in their class. Every child will have a chance to play with every other child in their class. There aren't 2 classes, there are just 2 learning groups. But those learning groups are fluid. That doesn't mean that just because your child is put into one classroom and he or she looks around and sees 9 other children, that those are the only 9 children that they're going to be with for the rest of the year. Quite the contrary. Because we were able to expand in the way we did, I want you to think about the 2 learning groups, 2 classrooms as 1 classroom. Now, students aren't just going to walk between them willy-nilly. That's not safe. But what is safe is that we can, throughout the course of the day, design it so that we can bring the children outside. For example, the classroom can be disinfected, and when we come back in, children can go to a new class. So there might be a time that first grade needs somebody, a particular group, and the day is designed that that particular group comes over to Mrs. Mattis, and the other group is with the academic instructional aide that'll be in the classroom with the other group, which is really a great design because you have 10 children in each class, and one group is being taught by the teacher. The other group may have been taught by the teacher already or is getting the lesson via live feed. But then that teacher can come right in with the other group and they can switch spots if need be. And then later on in the day, the teacher may say, well, I need reading group A or reading group B or reading group C. Okay, we can do that. So we can make sure that students are learning and being taught at the level that is right for them. And so that doesn't change. Another thing that's great about our design is that the children actually will be able to move about the classroom. Unfortunately, there are a lot of schools in the United States where they aren't able to do what we are. And they are going to put 20 kids in a classroom. And the desks are going to be from wall to wall, 6 feet apart. Kids pressed right up against the front wall, kids pressed right up against the back wall. And they can't leave their desk. They can't walk around. That's not the way it's going to be at St. Thomas. St. Thomas is going to allow those classrooms space so that kids can be kids and they can move about and they can do it safely. But we are not going to commingle groups. And that's very, very important for contact tracing. And it's very important for us to maintain that so that if something were to happen, we're not closing down the whole school. We're only closing down a part of the school that otherwise may have been compromised. We'll get into a little bit more on that later. But the health and safety of your child is really and has always been our most important and our most, the highest priority for us, without a doubt. So our parish certainly took the lead on this. And the parish has made a substantial investment in our children's health, and they installed brand new state-of-the-art air conditioning and ventilation throughout the building. Now, this is not circulated air. This is ventilated air. And there's a big difference because this ventilated air is drawing in the clean air from outside and it's exhausting the stale air outside. And that's what the guidelines ask for. A vented school building. Now, other schools are looking at opening windows and opening doors or putting fans in the window. That's not what we did. We said if we were going to reopen school, we were going to do it in the way that was going to be healthiest for the child. And so a substantial investment on the part of the parish was begun, and they are finishing up that project later today and early next week. Once we get that project done, the school really is going to go into high speed and getting the rooms organized. A couple of the participants in earlier webinars asked for pictures of the school. Can we see what the classrooms look like? And I said to them, absolutely you can. And in fact, as soon as they're ready, we're going to start sending out a lot of pictures. But I am not sending you a picture of the school, how it looks right now. It is definitely torn apart, but it's torn apart for a very, very good reason. And we know where all the pieces go, so we can quickly put it back together when we can. So we took the initiative, the parish took the initiative and put in a substantial upgrade to our school building. We're asking all students bring in masks from home and to bring in more than one mask per day. I'm thinking it might be as many as 3 masks a day that students will go through. Now, these can be reusable masks, that's fine, but they should bring those masks home, and if the masks are soiled, they should be cleaned. But the cloth face masks are what we're looking for. And they need to cover the nose and the mouth and the cheeks, and they need to hook behind the ear. We don't want the ones that tie. They become a little bit more difficult for children to manage. And 3-ply masks are really the call of the day. 3-ply masks, they cannot be vented, which means you can't have an expectorator or you know, a respirator, I guess is the right term. Those aren't really what we need. And we don't need any of the masks that come with a built-in slit so that you can slide your straw without taking slide your straw into your mouth without taking your mask off. We don't want those either. Those are no good in a school situation. So 3-ply masks cover the face. And if for some reason it's forgotten at home or a student has gone through all of theirs in the day, we've got them. We have PPE for everybody in the school. And in fact, we are under guidelines and mandates to have a certain amount of PPE. We're technically not allowed to stockpile. So I won't say that we have a stockpile, but we have enough that we need, that we have enough to open the school, and we're in very good shape with that. And we'll continue to purchase as needed. But again, we're not stockpiling, but we have enough. So health and safety, very, very important to us. I've gone over already. There is no commingling of cohorts. And that's going to be a very big thing when it comes to contact tracing. We'll build on this concept a little bit later in the presentation, but keep in mind, if the unfortunate happens that someone is exposed to COVID-19, or even worse, if someone is testing positive for COVID-19, they're going to want to know who that person has been in contact with. And the fewer contacts that person has had, then the fewer closures I need to make here at the building. And of course, those are going to be done through the Department of Health. But commingling of cohorts, not going to happen here at St. Thomas. But what is going to happen is a lot of hand washing with soap and water. And when soap and water is not as easily available, we're going to use hand sanitizer. And hand sanitizer will be used before entering the building, numerous times throughout the day, soap and water numerous times throughout the day. Soap and water is the best disinfectant. It's better than your hand sanitizer. But hand sanitizer is far more convenient. And so it does fit the bill if the hand is not visibly soiled. But soap and water is going to be what the kids should be using when they can. Now, when the children aren't in the classrooms, they're going to go outside quite a bit. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Those classrooms are going to be cleaned and disinfected. So that's multiple times each day that classroom is cleaned and disinfected. If a child, or I should say, if a group is switching classrooms, and that will happen where a class will switch classrooms, before they go into the new classroom, that classroom is completely disinfected and cleaned. So the way we're thinking about it is, say following a morning break, the children come back into the building, but rather going to the classroom where they were before the break, they'll go to their new assigned classroom, which would be the other grade classroom. Each class will have two classrooms, two learning areas. Hand sanitizing stations will be accessible throughout the building. They're always going to be in the view of an adult. So students aren't just going to be able to walk down the hall and empty a whole bunch of hand sanitizer into their hands. We have to keep in mind, hand sanitizer is a potentially dangerous product. If it were to be misused and got in someone's eye, boy, that is very, very painful. It's also very flammable. And so we are very careful with that, but we also know that that needs to be made available to our children. And while all of this is now a part of life at St. Thomas, we have to teach children and staff how it is that things are going to work. And so the children will be taught the proper protocols, and we'll provide the support that the children need as they make their way back to school, and that's socially, emotionally, spiritually, academically. I know a lot of us are looking at the academics, but there's going to be a big part of coming back to school, which is social and emotional. Remember, these children may not have been with children for 6 months. They haven't seen their classmates except in little squares on their Chromebooks. And a lot of them are going to be anxious. A lot of them are going to be excited, but there's going to be a lot of nerves as well. So keeping kids safe also means we have to do an excellent job making sure that the children feel safe, they're not anxious, they're not nervous, because if they're feeling any of those things, they're not going to do as well as they can academically. Arriving safely in the morning. Things are going to be very different in the morning when people arrive. One of the main questions people ask is, are parents going to be able to walk their kids in? And the answer is no. I'm sorry to say, but no. Until further notice, parents are not allowed to come into the school building. Now, the exception of that is if you do have to pick up a sick child, and if we can't walk them out. But mostly, if they're sick, they'll be walked out by us. Other than that, we really do not want visitors in the building. We want to keep the number of people who are coming into this building to a very, very low minimum. But we're going to have 4 different entrances where you're going to drop your child off. And pre-K, K, and grade 2 are going to be dropped off in the back. Grades 1, 3, and 4 will enter by the entrance near the flagpole and sign. Grades 5 and 6 are going to enter through that gray cafeteria door. And grades 7 and 8 will enter from the kitchen door. Children are going to come into the building one at a time. And we highly recommend that students arrive via private car when possible. If you can drive your child to school and pick them up from school, that is going to be a big, big help to everybody. Okay? The fewer children we can have on the bus, the safer it is for everyone. That being said, we understand that there are some situations that would require a family to use the bus and not drive. If that's the case, you must get in touch with your local school district. I know Bethlehem sent out something today that said today is the day. They need to know what your transportation plans are. So that is important. We all have to work as a community. We have to work together. And the school districts are doing the very, very best they can to plan transportation routes and do it appropriately. Remember, these districts can't probably put but half the children on the bus that they once did, because the social distance guidelines are the same thing on the bus. The kids have to be 6 feet away from each other. That means you can really only put one kid in every seat, one kid in every other seat is the design. And, families can sit together, but it still means that probably half, maybe only 60% of the bus can be used. So districts really are in a tight spot with that. Hopefully, hopefully things will change on that sooner than later. And you'll hear me say this throughout the presentation today. If numbers continue to go down here in Albany County, then we can be confident that some of these things are going to change, some of these guidelines, some of these restrictions, some of these new protocols. And we want to get to the point where we can see them change. We want to get to the point where we can have more children on the bus. We want to get to the point where maybe we can begin to commingle classes again. That would be good. That would mean everybody's been doing what they're supposed to be doing, and schools are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that the spread has really dropped. Because we want to keep people safe. We want to keep them healthy. And so everything we're going over, the wearing of masks, the sanitizing of the classrooms, the keeping everybody clean, washing your hands, using hand sanitizer if necessary. That's all meant to keep school open. It's all meant to keep people healthy. And if people stay healthy, school stays open. Safety in the classroom. We're going to have students in full day pre-K and 4. As I said, you're going to be put into one of 2 cohort groups. And those cohort groups will change probably weekly. They likely won't change daily, but that'll be up to the classroom teacher. And as a student is assigned to a cohort, we'll make sure that the student gets where they're supposed to get on that first day. And the teacher and the academic aide will supervise and instruct students throughout the day. And as I said, the students can move between the 2 learning areas, between the 2 classrooms, and they're going to do it safely. So, for example, if a kindergartner is in the media center and they have to use the bathroom, they're going to use the bathroom. They might go over to the kindergarten room to use the bathroom, and that would be great. And there's going to be an aide in the hallway, not a kindergarten aide, not a classroom aide. This is someone who really is the hall monitor. So that hall monitor is going to sort of be at those crossroads in the academic hall, right outside the media center. They're going to be close to the bathrooms, and they're going to see the hallway, and they're going to be the traffic cop. And they're going to make sure traffic doesn't get too heavy out there in the hallway. And by heavy, I mean no more than 1, 2 kids at the most. When the kids go to the bathroom, we're going to make sure that not too many go in there, meaning 1, 2 at the most. They'll be told where to go, what to do. Instruction. And the kids will learn. It's a new way of being at school, but it's the safe way of being at school. It's what will cut down the chance of spread. So in the part day pre-K room, we have enough space for 13 children to be spread out. And so I know that Ms. Kim and Mrs. Fayola, they've done a great job in putting things together on that. So that's a wonderful situation. In the middle school, as I mentioned, we have our gymnasium that's been turned into 2 learning areas, 2 classrooms. Ms. Begain and Mrs. Heilsberg will be in there. And then in the cafeteria, those of you who've been around long enough, you know that there's like a wall divider partition built into the walls there. That will separate the cafeteria into two distinct classrooms. And you'll have 5th and 6th grade in there. You'll have Mrs. Lapone and you will have Ms. Wick, and they'll be in the cafeteria with the kids. Now, those spaces allow us to space the desks out by 6 feet. And because those children are older and they're also able to better manage themselves, they're going to be in their desks. And so they won't have to wear their masks as long as they're in their desk. But when they're moving about the room, or when the teacher calls that something has to happen, the masks go on. Teacher's moving about the room, the masks are on. When it's time to dismiss or go to the next class, I should say, the masks go on. The students stand. They'll have their backpack with them with all of their necessary books. And they will move to a part of the classroom under the direction of the teacher, and the cleaning crew and the teacher will disinfect the classroom, seats, chairs, desktops, commonly touched areas. Anything that needs to be disinfected is disinfected. And then the children move to the next area in unison. And when they get to the next area, the teacher will sit them one by one so that there's no crossing, so that they're never within 6 feet of anybody. And then they sit and their next period begins. So we have that middle school schedule designed so that the children come to their homeroom as early as 7:30, as late as 8:15 or 8:20. The academic day begins at 8:30. And they're not moving from that classroom until 10 o'clock. So they're going to have that double period, the first period of the day. Then at 10 o'clock, they'll stand, they'll be disinfected, they'll move, they won't be disinfected, but the rooms will be disinfected. And then they'll move to the next space. They'll have their next 2 periods, and then it's lunchtime. And so they'll have lunch at about 11:30. And that will keep them very, very safe. So breaks are going to be an important part of the day because the children are going to have to get outside. They're going to need some fresh air. We need some fresh air. They need a space they can take their mask off. They'll be far away from other kids. They put their mask back on. They can go be closer to other kids and play games. But they'll be outside, regular breaks under the supervision of a teacher or aide. In addition, many class lessons may be held outside. In fact, we're encouraged by the state education department to do just that. And what also allows when children go outside is that we can then clean and disinfect the classrooms regularly. So these breaks are designed and they have multi-purposed. They're multi-purposed. It gets the kids out, it gets fresh air, gives them a break from their mask perhaps, and then they are coming back into a classroom that is clean and disinfected. And that's going to really help keep down the spread of any illness, not just COVID-19. So breaks are going to take place in the morning. Breaks will take place at midday through recess, and breaks will take place in the afternoon. In addition, teachers are going to move outside with their classes. And so, for example, PE really is going to be taught outside unless it's pouring rain. Even if it gets cold, when it gets cold, it's not an if it gets cold. We live in Albany. It's going to get cold. PE will still be outside. Hats, gloves, coats, warm clothing, all a part of what life is going to be like at St. Thomas in the wintertime, because you are going to have to go outside. And we're going to have to allow for that. We won't go out if it's raining. So we don't want much rain. It can come at night, but that's it. And we will make that and continue to have that as part of our daily protocol. Okay. Now, we've worked your child pretty hard this morning. We have them coming and they're arriving and getting to their classroom, and they've had their academics and they've had their lessons, and now it's time for lunch. And lunch will be in the classrooms. Again, there's no commingling. We're not sending them all to one place and kindergarten, first and second grade eat lunch together. No. Everyone will eat lunch on their own in their classrooms at their desks, 6 feet apart from everyone else. They won't have their mask on during this time, of course. They won't have it on during lunch. But if anybody has an allergy or an accommodation needs to be made, of course, we're making that accommodation. We're doing that. That's not a problem. And recess is going to be scheduled by grade level. And obviously, not everybody's going to be able to climb on the equipment at the same time. We're going to have to set up a schedule, and we're going to have to carve up the outside a little bit. But keep in mind, everybody, we have the big grass field across the street next to the church. We have the front lawns. We have the areas, 2 areas inside the fence in the back playground, and then you have the blacktop itself, the basketball court, the kickball field. So there's going to be plenty of areas around for children to be, and I think that that's a great place. A question came in, and does uniform change as a result of being outside? The biggest change to the uniform for being outside immediately is the wearing of sneakers. So children can wear sneakers to school every day. And that's the biggest change that has come around. But someone's asked about leggings or warmth, and absolutely, okay? Yeah, warm shoes, warm boots. Listen, this is a time in our school's history where the wearing of the uniform is important, but also being more practical is even more important. So yeah, when clothes have to be worn and changed, listen, we will adjust the uniform policy as needed, okay? But certainly during September and into October, academic uniforms, gym uniforms, 5 days a week, you can wear sneakers. As we get a little bit closer to the cooler weather, yeah, absolutely. Anything that we can do to ensure that the kids remain warm and they remain focused on staying safe and learning, that's all we're looking for. And so if we can do that, that's really the best. The next thing we have is aftercare. And I know a lot of families are wondering about what aftercare is going to look like this year. And we have a little different schedule for aftercare. See, we're not commingling, and our aftercare program was completely based on commingling. We had pre-K through 8th grade all together in the same room. We can't do that anymore. We can't do it right now. Doesn't mean we won't be able to return to it, and I hope we'll be able to return to it sooner than later. But until further notice, we can't run an aftercare program like that. We can run an aftercare program, but it's not going to be the same. And as parents, you have to understand that, and the kids have to understand that as well. But if a bunch of 4th graders are staying in aftercare, that's great, and they'll all stay in the 4th grade room. Same thing with kindergartners, 7th grade, 3rd grade. It doesn't matter. You're going to stay in your room, and we won't commingle. Dismissal is going to be a little bit different. The arrival time will begin at 7:30, and it's going to hopefully end about 8:15, 8:20 at the beginning. But that gives us about 45-minute window to move 150, 160, 180 kids into the building. And we can do that. We can certainly do that from 4 different entrances. So I'm not going to put together a schedule for arrival, but I'm going to have to put together a schedule for dismissal, because we are going to have what I would only describe as staggered dismissal times. Instruction will end at around 2:25. Kids will have 5 minutes to get their things together, and dismissal begins at 2:30. We'll assign a certain number of families that pickup will be, say, from 2:30 to 2:40. Another group will be 2:40 to 2:50. Another group 2:50 to 3 o'clock, 3 o'clock to 3:10, 3:10 to 3:20. whatever your arrival time is, we ask that you stick with it. Yes, there are going to be times when you just can't make it. We will still deliver your child safely to you when you arrive. But if this system is going to work, everybody's going to have to do their best to get to school in their arrival time. So pickup could be as late as 3:15. There is no charge for staying till 3:15. And from some of the older students, that may work very, very well, because that could give them time to do homework, ask teachers questions, et cetera, et cetera. And that's a good 45 minutes chunk of time that a lot can happen. So I'm encouraged by that. And I actually like that, because it gives families flexibility and it gives us flexibility working with students. Okay. But that dismissal time is going to be staggered. If you're a family with multiple children, you're probably going to be doing the most work at arrival and dismissal time. But I just don't know if there's any other way to do this, but you're going to have to drop each child off at their respective doors. So you just can't unload everybody out at one door and then they walk around the building. We can't do that. We have to have it so that everybody is checking in at their door properly. Okay. And the flow around the building hopefully will be pretty good. Someone asked, will we be allowed to choose our pickup time? And the answer to that will be yes. Because clearly, if you prefer later or earlier, I will put you where you prefer. There won't be unlimited slots, so I can't guarantee you one slot. But if you put your first and second choice down, I would pretty much guarantee you would get those. So we definitely are going to work with families on that so that we get everybody where they need to be. Okay. Communication is going to be such an important part of our reopening plan and what we need to do in order to be safe. Families need to know as things change. I'm going to give you a perfect example. Since guidance came out about 3 weeks ago, we were receiving memos under the transportation that absolutely no way could hand sanitizer be on the bus. Hand sanitizer is a flammable product and it cannot be it should not be on the bus. It won't be available on the bus. Well, sure enough, today, State Ed issued new guidelines that said, no, in fact, under these certain conditions, and as long as it follows these protocols, hand sanitizer will be on the bus and it'll be close to the driver. But that needs to be communicated. These types of changes are going to be happening, I don't want to say on a daily basis, but probably pretty close. So between now and the beginning of school, you should expect regular communication from the school. And when you see that communication from the school, I don't want it to be something that just gets put to the side and you'll read it later. And I'm not pointing a finger at anybody but myself, because I know I am very guilty when I see something come from my son's school. I say, oh, okay, I'll read that later. And then I don't get to it. And then I look and I was supposed to do something, or something big changed and I needed to be aware of it. So please, the messages that come home from school these days are very important messages. So please open them up and we will stay in touch with you. Faculty information coordinators will be distributing information, print resources, e-resources, website links, social media, e-blasts. It's all coming your way, folks. It is all coming your way. We want to make sure that you know about the plan, you know what needs to be done, what's working, what's not working. We know we're going to be changing our plan. We know we're going to be changing some of these procedures. We know we're going to be changing some of these protocols. The way this plan looks today on August the 21st is not the way it's going to look on September the 21st, and it's going to look even more different on October the 21st. That's just what's happening. We're beginning to remind ourselves of the old mantra, the only constant is change. And that's what we're looking at with these plans and the guidance that's coming from the Department of Health and state ed and everywhere else. So we really do want to make sure that communication between home and school and home is top notch. And so please, please, please expect that to be happening, okay? I don't think I talked about it, but I feel I have to with the, when your child comes to school, and it may have been in the bullets and I don't remember saying it. If I'm repeating myself, it's because this is the third time I've done this in 24 hours, but it's also because I'm getting old. But when your child comes to school, we will take their temperature, and that will be done in the car. And so you can't park across the street at the church and come across, and you're going to have to be with your child, because it could be that your child can't come into school. Because if their temperature is 100 degrees or above, they cannot come into school. And so we will make sure that kids who are coming into the building are healthy. And once they're in the building, we'll do our very best to ensure that they maintain that health. But it may come to pass that somebody's not feeling well. And if someone's not feeling well, they're going to go into the nurse's office, which is now called the sick room, okay? And they're going to be effectively we're going to talk about their symptoms. The nurse will ask them what's going on, how are they feeling. Just the numbers, the way they are in Albany County, the likelihood that because someone has a stomach ache or a headache or they feel nauseous, it's not likely that they're infected with COVID-19. The numbers just aren't pointing to that. It's likely they have a tummy ache or a headache or they're not feeling good. But the fact is that those symptoms, stomach aches and headaches, kind of these cryptogenic symptoms, hey, they're brought on by anxiety. They're brought on by stress. And our children are going to be feeling a fair amount of anxiety and a fair amount of stress. And we know that. And we know that we're going to work with them, and we're going to ensure that they feel comfortable talking to us about anything that's bothering them. But we'll also have an area beyond the nurse's office, right next to it, actually, out in the lobby, and it will be partitioned off, so it's a private space. But that's going to be our TLC center. So that's where the kids are going to go if they get a scrape or a cut. A lot of times kids will come down to the nurse's office and they'll say, I cut my finger. And they'll show us a cut that clearly happened days ago because it's scabbed over. But they want a Band-Aid. That's called TLC visits. And they come down and they get their Band-Aid and they visit with us a little bit and then they go back. Now, we unfortunately are going to have to curtail a lot of that because we don't want the kids moving throughout the hallway as much as that requires. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. So we're actually going to have 2 rooms that are infirmary rooms, and then 1 room for TLC for our nursing. And the other question that has come up about nursing is, will you have a full-time nurse? Well, this is the part of the webinar where we've known this in education, but a lot of you are learning about this. Nursing in schools is not a right. That's not something that you're entitled to in New York State. Public school, private school, doesn't matter. Public schools don't have to supply nurses. The only thing public schools have to do is if they're supplying themselves nurses, they have to supply the private schools within their area equitable nursing services. So Mrs. Bruno comes to us and we have her 3 days a week because of our population size. 3 days a week. We hire Mrs. Kayan to be a nurse here at school when Mrs. Bruno can't be here. We know that that's important. We know having a nurse here makes me feel good as a principal, makes you feel good as a parent, and makes the kids feel good. But as parents, you have to understand that when the children come down to the nurse, 90% of the time they're TLC visits. And 75% of our staff, Ms. Fox, Mrs. Murphy, myself, Coach, 75% of our staff are trained in basic aid, CPR, AED. So we can handle what it is that might come down with your child. If it's something more than that, if there are symptoms that we're concerned about, I don't have the initials MD after my name. I went to school to become a teacher. I didn't go to school to become a doctor, so I don't diagnose. But I do know that if somebody's complaining about a sore throat, or if we take a temperature and it's over 100 degrees, or there's coughing going on, you're going to get a call and you're going to go home. That being said, I'm not going to say to you, now you have to go get a COVID-19 test. No, that's not my position. That's not the school's position. We can't do that. We're not doctors. But what you will need to do is you will need to call your doctor. And the doctor is going to walk you through the process. And the fact is, she'll probably something to the effect of, okay, keep him home for a couple days, see how he is. If it continues, then maybe you go in for a test. If it doesn't continue, then I'll write a note that says they've been cleared to return to school. And we expect that to happen. Every time someone gets a tickle in their throat or starts coughing, it doesn't mean that COVID tests are required. The other thing that's come up with a lot of people, and they're concerned about this, is I have allergies. And my allergies make me cough. I have a pre-existing condition that makes me cough. I take medicine that makes me cough. It's fine. Coughing in school doesn't mean you have to go home. But it is to our advantage and your advantage. If something like that exists, please let us know. And we can get that into your confidential file, as your student's confidential file. And we'll know that, okay, the coughing is just that. It's been identified. We know what it is. We're not going to be concerned about it. So all of those things definitely come into play when we're looking at the health of our children. All of this is going to be part of in-person training. Our teachers are going to be trained, our staff is being trained, our kids are going to be trained, all of the students are going to be trained on how to use and properly handle a mask, how to put it on and take it off. We're going to practice hand hygiene and go over the importance of it. We're going to go over respiratory hygiene. We're going to go over social distancing. We're going to have colors and shapes and directions and signs. Your child is going to have such great spatial development. They could look at a 2x4 and they could tell you whether it's longer or shorter than 6 foot by the time we're finished with them. We are really going to make sure everybody understands what social distancing is. And then to kind of piggyback on what I was saying, there's going to be training for identifying symptoms. And that's why it's very important if there are some underlying conditions, such as a cough, that we're made aware of it. And it certainly is helpful. Okay. So those trainings take place, and they're going to start taking place as early as those 2 orientation days, September 10th and September 11th, and they're going to continue the following week, the week of the 14th, and they're going to continue the following week, the week of the 21st, probably even the week of the 28th. But we're going to keep continuing to remind and to educate and to make sure that kids understand not only what they're doing, but why they're doing it. And that's a big part of, I think, trying to get kids to understand where we are with this. Because I don't want kids, particularly the younger children, to think that this is the way it's going to be, that this is now life and this is going to be forever, because it's not. At least I don't believe so. And I don't think any of us believe so. I think that this is just a part of life that we're going through, and we need to do what we can to stay safe. And training is one of those things that we need to do to stay safe. Cleaning and disinfecting in the school. We are going to adhere to hygiene and cleaning and disinfection as required by the Department of Health, NICEAD, Environmental Protection Agency. Anybody who has any voice in this area, we have gotten materials from, and we are following the protocols. I will say this school will never be as clean as it will be during this time. We've hired extra cleaning people in order to go about the building, doing the things that need to be done. We've invested in a Clorox 360 machine. And that machine is a top of the line, state of the art aerosolizer of disinfectant. And that machine is going to be able to disinfect this entire school in about 2 hours each day. And it's going to be used if, classroom is empty for a little bit. Boom, we go in there, use the 360, completely disinfected. And that's a great, great thing that we got as well. We were lucky to get it. They're continue to be back ordered. A lot of schools aren't going to get theirs in time. We ordered ours early enough, so we're able to get it. But we are following a very strict cleaning protocol and disinfecting protocol. Bathrooms, offices, administrative offices, everything that's touched, wiped down constantly throughout the day. Any place where the kids are going, it's going to be bathrooms are clean 3-5 times a day, going in and disinfecting. We're going to teach the kids before they go into the bathroom what they're supposed to do when they're in there. Don't touch anything you don't have to touch. Wash your hands with soap and water, 20 seconds. Dry your hands thoroughly, come on back out. We are going to keep everything clean. We are going to disinfect as much as possible. That is the protocol, and that is what we are following. If the time comes that we have to have a school closure, and I'm saying if, I know some people think it's going to happen. I just think if schools do what they're supposed to do, it's not going to be because of the schools that we are going to close. But if there is a confirmed case, excuse me, if there's a confirmed case here at St. Thomas, we are required to notify the Department of Health in Albany. And then the Department of Health takes over. And they're going to decide how it is that we proceed. And they're going to do contact tracing, and they're going to figure out which groups need to be sent home and which groups can remain in school. I don't believe that if there's one case of COVID-19 here at school, that the Department of Health would shut it down. Now, I can't say that with 100% assuredness, but it would make sense to me because they're really looking to disrupt schools as little as possible at this point. And if we have remained true to our no commingling, it's likely it would be very, very few who would be affected by this. And it might be a situation where the Department of Health says, okay, we had a confirmed case, in 8th grade. How are you guys moving? What's your plan? How many kids do the 8th graders interact with? And it might just be the 8th grade and the teachers that have to go. Okay, then that's what it'll be. But that's better than the whole school. And so that is one of the reasons why I am not commingling. I know other places are, I'm not. Because I want to keep our school open. And I want to keep our kids coming to school. Face-to-face learning is a much better way to learn than remote. Now, I know people have to remote, and that's going to be your option to learn remote. And I encourage every family to think seriously about whether they're sending their child back to school face-to-face or whether they're going to start the year remotely. And that's a family's decision. There are a lot of variables that have to go into that decision. And that's a decision I had to make with my own family, and you've got to make with yours. But I think we all know that the best way to learn is face-to-face, or the better way to learn is face-to-face over remote. If we do have to close, everybody's going to be remote. And we're going to make sure everybody has the proper technology, everybody has everything they need if we have to go remote again. My hope is if we do have to go remote, it's for a very short period of time, a week, maybe 2 weeks, and we can be back at it. I don't see another major closure that closes us for 3 months. I certainly hope that doesn't occur, but it may. But in case it does, we'll have the technology. We will immediately be able to go online. In fact, the very next day. We close on Tuesday, we're online Wednesday. That's how quick we're going to be able to do it. Now, for the families who choose to go remote, we're going to meet with you. If you decide, yes, I am going to, we're going to start remote, we're going to meet with you. We're going to make sure everybody knows what the expectations are. Everybody's going to know that there are set schedules that are going to have to be in place, and school is actually going to be every day. Because the state has been clear about this, the diocese has been clear about this, and I agree with them as the principal 110%. We cannot have a repeat of what we had in the spring. And St. Thomas's online learning was among one of the best in the capital region, one of the best in the state. But we can't do that. We can't expect children to continue to learn and grow at the rate they need to if we're coming some days and not coming some days and not handing work in and not showing up for a week or two at a time. Oh, I didn't have the right connection. This happened, that happened. I know. We can't do that this time. This is school. And if you choose to be remote, there's going to be a schedule you have to follow every day. It's not a situation that you can look at a recorded lesson when it's convenient. No, things have to be in place in order for that to work. So if you do choose remote, and we're going to be sending out information to parents, and by next Wednesday, we would really like to have parents who are thinking about remote having set up some meetings so that we can meet with you one-on-one and go over all the things that will be necessary for remote learning. Okay? Listen, remote learning is a great, great option. If the other option is no learning at all, then by all means, remote is better than nothing. But it is not as good as being face-to-face. It's just not. And anybody who's trying to tell you that it is trying to sell you something. So please understand, we want the children here 5 days as much as possible. But we also know that may not be possible for a number of families. You may have concerns that far outweigh the benefit of face-to-face learning. We understand that. That's not anything that's held against you. We are working with you on that front. We're going to make sure you have everything you need, you understand what it is that needs to be done, and we're going to ensure that your child is getting the very best education they can be through remote learning. So at this point, I think I just heard the 4 o'clock bell from the church. And I think that there might be some Q&A. No, I don't see anything in the list of questions and answers that people have. Now, I've gone through an awful lot in an hour. I've recorded this session. It will be available. I've recorded the other 2 sessions. They'll be available. As I said, the 3 sessions are virtually identical. But I didn't follow a script, so I may have said something under one session. I didn't say it under the second or the third. We'll put together, again, a set of notes. We'll put together a frequently asked question list. We want to make sure all of your questions are answered. If we end this webinar and you still have questions, email me, email Mrs. Murphy, email Ms. Fox. We will get you the answer as soon as we can. Okay, so please make sure that you understand that that's always open. Okay, it says, I see you're recording. Actually, we are, and it will be available to view at a later date. Absolutely. All 3 sessions will be available as long as Mr. Kane doesn't fail miserably technologically, which I don't think I have. So yes, they will go in there. All right. Somebody asked, go into more details about the first couple days. I do not know yet when you're going to come in. I don't have those schedules yet. In fact, it was only about 24 hours ago that we were able to get the okay that yes, we should be able to plan on the 9th and 10th as our start dates. Keep in mind, we are putting in a major project that did not start until after the fireworks didn't go off on the 4th of July. and they're putting in a new air conditioning and ventilation system in this building. And we actually started to get a little nervous about whether or not we were going to be able to open, but we've been assured that yes, in fact, we should be clear for September the 10th. So our project over the next couple days is putting together those schedules, okay? Hey, listen, if you say to yourself, I'd rather come in on the 11th, I'd rather come in on the 10th, just shoot us an email and let me know. That's fine. We can make that happen, okay? Another question came in, is the hybrid model still being offered? Thankfully, we don't have to offer a hybrid model, which would be the kids come in one day and then not come in another day. If something has to happen where a child is learning both remotely and in person, we can set something up like that, but that's not a plan that we would otherwise say this is the way the child should be learning. We don't have to do that because we don't have to break our classes up. See, the hybrid model, the blended model, which takes place in a lot of the schools now, is some of the kids are face-to-face on Monday, and then they're home on Tuesday getting the lesson remotely, and then they're back in school on Wednesday, and then they're home on Thursday, and then they're back in school on Friday. Now, what we want to see, particularly for the upper grades, for sure, we want to see one or the other, because the hybrid model works under certain circumstances, but I don't think that that is really the best way to go. It's certainly something we would have done had we to do it, but right now we do not have to do that hybrid model. That being said, I know some people are facing transportation issues. I know some people have things that have to happen in the family. If something needs to be worked out, we are very, very flexible. So I don't want anybody to think that, you know, Mr. Kane said, no, we can't do that or that's impossible. No. You just come to us, you ask us if it is possible, and we'll have a conversation about it. And maybe what you say is very valid. And we say, yeah, that makes the best sense for that child. Okay. The other question is, who do we email our pickup time preference to? It's good to always send those to all three, Erica, Jennifer, and myself, particularly at this time of year, because we're all busy doing a lot of different things, and sometimes one person will get it and the others won't have time to answer it. So it's always good at this point to make sure you send it to myself, Mrs. Murphy, and Miss Fox. So if you do know what your pickup time preference will be, that's fine. You're going to get a form from Miss Fox anyway that you'll fill out complete. So that'll be going home shortly. Okay. But anytime you have a question on emailing, send it to all three of us. And that's the best chance that you'll be answered as quickly as possible with that, okay? But you'll be getting a form, a survey to fill out from Miss Fox. She's very good at creating those, and those have been great, okay? Anyone else have any questions in the Q&A? All right, I think I've covered the questions that have been asked on all of the forms that have come in. I'm not seeing anything I didn't go over. Oh, band. That was something I didn't go over. Those of you whose children have taken band with Paul Effman, Paul Effman Music will not be able to offer live lessons this year, when we start. The restrictions on band lessons are that the children have to be at least 12 feet away if they're using their mouth on the instrument, 12 feet away. We don't have the space for it. But Dr. Bellino's been in touch with us, and they're going to offer lessons remotely, and they're going to be after school. So if anybody has a question about music, more information will be coming home about band, okay? Ms. Chonsky will push into classrooms because once I heard band, I know that art, PE, music will still be taught. Ms. Chonsky will go into the classrooms, pre-K through 4. 5 through 8, they're right next to the art room, and they'll be able to get in there safely and use the art room. PE, I mentioned, will be outside. Music class will be pushing as well with Mr. Stein. Unfortunately, there won't be any singing in music class. Music class without singing? I know, I said the same thing. But that is the regulation. We have to be 12 feet apart if we're going to be singing. We just do not have any space that would allow for the children to be 12 feet apart. Outside, maybe. Maybe Mr. Stein will bring them out toward the beginning of the year, and maybe we'll have a lawn concert. But there will be other lessons in music. And even without singing, there's a lot to learn in the world of music. Okay? Someone had a question about building logistics, that if we have to pick up our child early, how will that work? You'll call into the school when you are at one of the 4 entrances, and we will escort your child out. Okay? If you're arriving late, it's the opposite. Pull up to where you're supposed to be, call into the school, say, I'm here. We'll come out, we take the child's temperature, all clear. Child goes in, day continues. Okay? Just to be clear, every student in the building needs to wear a mask when required. Everybody in here is at least 2 years of age or older. So everyone will have to wear a mask when required. Okay? Someone had a question, will both classes operate at the same time in the gym? And the answer to that is yes, they will. We have screens separating the two. Mrs. Heilsberg and Ms. Begain know that they're not going to be in competition with each other with their voices. And so we feel that it's separated enough and there's enough damper between the two areas that they'll be able, there's going to be the partitions separating the two of them. And so we actually thought about that in terms of, will that be conducive? And everybody agrees that while it's not ideal, yeah, we can do it. Okay, so both classes will operate at the same time in the gym. Okay, it won't necessarily be all the time like that, but there will be portions in the week where it will be. Okay. I think I've answered all the other questions that were submitted earlier in the week. But a lot of these questions will have answers also written down and put into our frequently asked question list. Question is, will middle school students rotate between the gym and the cafeteria? That's our design right now. So in between, when they get up from their desks, the desks and seats will be disinfected by the cleaning team and the teacher, not by the students. Once we get the all clear that everything's been disinfected, they kind of do the merry-go-round, and one group moves out, the other group moves in, everybody remaining 6 feet apart from one another. Okay? And so that is how that will work. We talked about keeping the kids in the same area, and we did not think pedagogically that was best, and we didn't think socially that was best or emotionally that was best. You see, unlike the pre-K through 4, 5 through 8, while lessons are going on, they're not going to have a chance to walk around. They're going to have to remain in their desk. There's no open space in those classrooms, 5 through 8. So we really do have to design a day where they're moving, where they're stretching their legs. And also that movement allows them to get outside and get some fresh air along the way. So that's the difference between a 5 through 8 and a K through 4. 5 through 8 really is going to have to stay in their desk during instruction, but in between instruction, there can be breaks and there's a time for them to move. But keep in mind, they're not going into that other learning area. until that learning area has been completely cleaned and disinfected. Another question, will Spanish be push-in? Absolutely. That's exact, and religion will be push-in as well. All right, they're not going to have separate classrooms. That's kind of what's going to give the double periods in the morning is the religion with Mrs. Gochi. And then you're going to have Ms. Romero with the Spanish in the afternoon. Again, allowing a little bit of consistency for the kids. Okay? So Spanish will be push-in as well. All right, anybody have any other questions? All right, Ms. Fox reminded me a very important question that came up in some other webinars. What if it snows and we have a snow day? Do we still have to log on and go to school? The answer to that is no. God delivers snow days to us for a reason. We are not to mess with that. A snow day means no school. So there will not be any remote learning on snow days. If we're closed, we're closed. Okay? And that is something that people had asked about. And that's exactly the case. If we have a snow day, we're not changing that. We don't have school. I pray that we don't have any, that we're out of this by the time any snow day comes, but I think I'm a wishful thinker. I think I pray for big items. Okay. Any other questions people might have? All right. My first webinar yesterday, we went for an hour and 45 minutes. That was definitely the largest. That was probably about twice as large as this webinar. This morning's webinar went for an hour and a half. I cut it by 15 minutes, and it looks like right now we're at an hour and 15 minutes, so we cut it by another 15 minutes. If nobody has any more questions, it's time to begin our weekend. All right, nobody else has put in the Q&A, so I'm going to say my goodbyes. I want you all to know how much we love you and how much we care about you and your family. That's who we are. We are a church. We are sent to bring God's love to everyone, and that's hopefully what you feel as part of the St. Thomas community. We would never, ever ask you to do something that we felt put you or your family or your child in any type of danger. We're very confident and comfortable with what we have done with our plan to this point is as good as anybody could possibly do. We're very fortunate that we can break into smaller groups. We're very fortunate that we can expand into our gymnasium and cafeteria. Those are excellent, excellent opportunities that allow us to open up face-to-face 5 days a week in the safest of conditions. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has been working overtime to get this school ready and to get the year ready so that your children return to school and they're safe and they're healthy and they're happy. We know that there's going to be some anxiousness. We know that there are going to be some nerves. We're here to make sure that we work together to solve those challenges. We're going to work together so that when things change, if they need to change, everybody knows about the change and everybody can do it easily. So I really want to impress upon all of you just how grateful we are that you are where you are right now. This is not easy for anybody. There have been a lot of days where giving up seemed like the right choice. It just seemed like the mountain was too high to climb. But here we are on August the 21st, and we're looking to open up. And we're looking to open up the safest school you'll find. Now, while orientation is, and this will be the last, while orientation is the week of, Labor Day week, the 10th and 11th, we really are going to try and have the school ready for tours. Small, one at a time type of tours for families to come in and see what it looks like. I'm keeping my fingers crossed on that because that's 2 weeks from today. But I think that we should be able to have a chance to get people in to take a look at the building, take a look at the classrooms so that you can have a visual. Someone asked in one of the web, can you send a picture of what the classrooms look like? I'm not sending any pictures right now, what this school looks like. If you saw what this school looked like right now, you would head for the hills. But trust me, in 2 weeks, it's going to be a diamond. It's going to shine brightly, and the whole year is going to shine. Your children are going to shine. They are going to rise to the occasion like you won't believe, because we know your children. We know what they're made of. We know what their spirit is about. And they are the strongest, kindest, most compassionate children anyone could ever teach. They are just wonderful, wonderful children, and we are so happy that you're part of the St. Thomas the Apostle School community. So I want you all to have a blessed weekend. I want you to have a wonderful time with your family as much as you possibly can. Know how blessed you are to have your children, because I know how blessed we are to have them. And sure, being a parent today is not easy, but you guys have been doing an outstanding job. You really have. Unbelievable. This is like nothing we've ever seen, and hopefully we'll never see it again. But we've stuck with it. We've been strong, and St. Thomas is going to have a great year. So I want to thank you all. I want you to begin your weekend. I want you to have a wonderful, wonderful time with your family the rest of the summer. And believe me, we love you to no end. So be aware. We're going to go and get the emails out to you. Have a wonderful weekend. Miss Fox just told me that's it. I got to go. I'm done. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We will see you soon.